Hello everyone. So now we are discussing the project integration management. Last time we discussed the project, we went through the introduction. Introduction was a pretty big chapter where we discussed too many things. I would say we started with how to fill the form, how to apply for the exam, how to submit the application, what were the different techniques you can use, some of the tricks and techniques which you should use for your preparation. Moving forward, then we also discuss some of the common inputs, some of the common tools and techniques, and finally we also discuss the some of the common outputs. These were some of the basic things which we would probably discuss in the entire PMP journey, in the entire coursework. Those are the things which we would be using a lot. You would hear from me speaking those things a lot. Moving forward, then we also discuss about the professional responsibility chapter, where we discuss about the code of ethics and the 5 basic chapters which are included in that. Once that was done, then we discuss about the forms of power, some of the leaderships, the triple constraint triangle, the scope, cost, time. Then we also discussed about the types of the ingratiating power, then some of the leadership styles, difference between the leadership and management, the talent triangle. So all of those were pretty important stuff. But now it's all about integration, and I would say this is the chapter where your real PMP is starting. When I say the real PMP, whatever you did last time, I'm not saying that's not important. That's pretty important. You will get a lot of questions from that as well. But this is something where we would start talking about the knowledge areas, where we would start talking about the different process groups, and finally what all processes are involved in the integration. So before we start, I want to give you a brief agenda about what all things we would cover, and then moving forward, we would talk in much more detail about it. So first, we will talk about what does this knowledge area involve. What are the important, like at a very high level, what all things we would be covering, would be discussed in this one. Then we would go into the 7 processes of integration management. Like first we would start with the high level definition of those processes so that it can give you a brief idea about what are those. And once we have the a brief idea, then we would probably go into some detailed discussions about those processes. Once where we would be going into much more details on the inputs, then what are the different tools and techniques, and finally we would be discussing the outputs as well. I would be talking about various other things. I would be talking about what particular process is important, why it is important, how many questions you can assume from this chapter. These are my understanding based upon my, I've taught, so many students, different students, and based upon my feedback, my discussions, their lessons learned with me. These are some of the database which I have created after talking to those, my students. So I would give you a number that from this particular process you can expect this X amount of questions, but it may or may not be true, but that is what my understanding is, and that I would assume I would be pretty much close by. Once after the detailed discussion, we'll probably go to the study focus, we'll do a quick revision of what all things we discussed, and finally we will do the closure. As always, as I discussed last time with you, I would be explaining the entire integration management with certain examples with which you can relate, like something like buying a car, like buying a house, or probably cooking a dish for dinner, or I would say something like manufacturing an iPhone. I would like to give you these basic examples which you probably do it in your day-to-day life, something with which you can relate a lot. And the reason why I'm giving you this is all because you might be somebody from construction, or you might be somebody who's pretty good in the IT field. I want to make sure that I'm giving you a generic viewpoint about these integrations so that you can relate more. Sometimes like planning a wedding. So all those things are something which you have closely done sometime, and you might be able to relate more. And of course, we would talk about the examples like sometime, like I'm from an IT background, like I'm a computer science engineer, and I've been into project management from a long time now. So I would be giving my personal experience and some of the experience with which my students shared it with me. I've learned a lot from my students. So some things I would share their examples. Sometimes I'll give you my personal experience examples. So here we are. Let's see what all things we have in this. So as I discussed, first we have the 7 processes and we have the 5 basic process groups. So start with, first of all, a brief overview, big picture, maintaining the big picture of the project throughout the life of the project. That's all about integration. It's the only knowledge area, I repeat, it's the only knowledge area which has processes in all the process group. That's why we call it as a big picture. Then once we move, the next is the all process groups, initiating, planning, executing, controlling and closing the project. Why? Because we have processes from all the process groups. Then we have the coordination. So for coordinating every part of the project, like since it has processes from all the knowledge areas, it coordinates. Like integration is something like, what does integration means? It means to integrate, to combine, to join different processes. So it's coordinating every part from time management to risk management to scope management to quality management. Everything is included in this knowledge area. Then the decision maker, we will also talk about. The project manager is the decision maker, keeping the project team focused on the project execution. As we discussed last time in the introduction, assume that the project manager is somebody who can take the decisions. Right, of course, for sometimes you would probably have to reach out to sponsor and your customer, but in the real world, probably what we do is like I won't say this is not fully correct, but you can relate it with your current scenarios. Most of the times, we as an individual, before taking a big decision, we probably talk to our superiors, we talk to our management team for all those decisions. But in PMI's world, think from this perspective that a project manager can take a decision. Okay, and if I go back to the code of ethics, if you're not taking a decision, this means that you are shying away from your responsibilities. So you're not doing a good thing. So keep that trick in mind, because a lot of questions would be answered correctly if you keep that trick in mind. Next, we have the iterative fashion. Project management is not a serial progression of processes. Much happens in parallel and in an iterative fashion. Integration coordinates and orchestrates order to the project management. So, as I said, it's not a serial progression of processes. It's all about most of the things in this knowledge area would be done in parallel. Like for example, if you are in the initiating, once an initiating is done, the next thing what you do is you do the planning. It's not necessary that you can't plan for quality. At the same time, you can actually plan for the scope as well. So there could be few instances where you are doing the things in parallel. So that's why it says it's not serial progression. It happens much in parallel with each other. Some of the key concepts, still we are in the basic structure. I'm just still giving you the high level overview of what integration means and what all things it would encompass. And moving forward, of course, we will go into the details about the processes as well. So making sure that deliverable due dates are aligned with the project life cycle and the benefits management plan. So I would say this is like the basic thing. When we do the project charter, the first official document which will assign a project manager to begin the work on the project, over there, it's your job as a project manager to make sure you are aligning to those dates. Whatever dates which are mentioned, whatever dates the customer wants, you if possible, you probably go ahead and try to meet those dates. Of course, there could be some risks which could, you might not be able to meet those dates. But as a project manager, it's your responsibility to make sure that those dates are met. Then we will also talk about the delivering aspect. Delivering a project management plan which will help to achieve the project objectives. So once the project objectives are defined, once you have defined that, okay, this is why we are doing the project, these are the list of benefits. Next thing is You will draft all of those information and you will plan how you will do it. When I talk about the word how means basically I'm talking about the project management plan, which will tell how this project would be managed, what are the things you would be probably covering in those pieces. Now, deliverable is something which is one of the important output from this knowledge area. So again, whatever is given in the project management plan, how you would be doing it, you would be actually going and doing that work. Okay? Then if you are planning for it, if you are delivering, executing those things, it's your job as a project manager to make sure you are monitoring and controlling it as well. Okay, so managing the changes and performance in the project management plan. So it's your job as a project manager to make sure that you're managing those changes. Okay, a lot of time your stakeholders will ask of couple of changes, like they are confused at what they really want. Like, this is my personal experience. I have met with customers where they really don't know what they really want, so in some kind of scenarios, what we do, we try to build a prototype, we try to see, okay, this is what it will look like, and based upon their when they get the first look and feel of the deliverable, then they go ahead and probably make those changes. So it's your job as a project manager to manage those changes. Very important. I would say change request is one of the most important topic which we would be discussing in this knowledge area. Objectives, making sure project meets the project objectives by constantly monitoring the project progress. So again, as I told you, it's not just about planning, it's not just about initiating, it's not just about delivering, it's also about the monitoring and the control aspect. So you as a project manager, you have to monitor the progress, and if there are some issues, if there are some risks, how can you mitigate those risks? If there are negative risks, and if there are opportunities, how you can realize those opportunities. So you would have to plan for it, and similarly you would have to monitor and control for it. Okay, and sometimes you probably might have to do some preventive actions, sometimes you might have to do some corrective actions. So you will constantly make sure that those information and those things are being constantly taken care by you. Then you will take care of the analysis piece, where collecting and analyzing the project data on the results achieved by the project. So whatever you are delivering, okay, in a project, you probably deal with a lot of analysts. Like in IT world, you deal with data analysts, you deal with business analysts. Their real job is actually to analyze that data. Whatever data you are getting, there would be they would be going into data, they would be checking what are the results they are getting and how they can improve it. These data would help them to take an informed decision. So analysis is an important piece which would be taken care in this knowledge area as well. Then finally, if everything is going as per plan, and if of course if things are not going as per plan also, you have to properly terminate the project, or you have to properly close the project. So closing is also something which is done in this knowledge area. So you start in this project, start from this knowledge area, you plan in this knowledge area, then you execute also the deliverables. One of the most important milestone is done in this knowledge area, and finally you close as well. So doing all of the required work on the project and closing the contract, each phase or the entire project. So it's not just about closing the project, it's also about the different phases. If you have multiple phases on your project, you probably close those phases as well. So one of the most important process, you'll get a lot of questions from this process as well, the closing piece, and I'll tell you the reason why. Last time, you guys might not know about it, but in PMP 5 there were two processes in closing. One was the closed procurements and the other was the closed project. So closed project is still there, but the closed procurement piece, it's something which is no longer in PMP 6. So what PMI did was, whatever things you were doing in closed procurements, they actually, some of the things they moved it to the closed project, which is something which we would be doing in this course, and some of the things they moved it to controlled procurements. So initially I used to remember, I used to say that there were around 7 to 8% of questions are coming from just the closing piece, And at that time there were two processes: closed project and the closed procurement. But now it's just one process in closing, which is the close project. So a lot of questions, you will enjoy a lot, you'll practice a lot. And remember, these videos will definitely help you, but ultimately you have to practice a lot. Until and unless you're not implementing the concepts which I'm teaching you by solving those questions, it won't help. So remember, of course, watch these videos multiple times, pause it, make your notes, which will help you to at the later phase when you are more closer to your exam, and because you cannot read the entire PMBOK, you cannot watch all the videos again. At that time, your main work should be to just go through these notes. So stop it, start it whenever you want, but please make notes. As discussed earlier, there are 7 processes of integration management. We'll start with the initiating. We have the develop project charter. Again, a very important. There are only 2 processes in initiating. One is the develop project charter, and the other one is the identify stakeholders in the stakeholder management. So when we do the stakeholder management knowledge area, we would be discussing about that. But this one, the develop project charter, very important. We'll get a lot of questions from this. We will discuss a lot of questions as well, but I would say, of course, one of the important ones. Then next we have the develop project management plan. I call the project management plan as the the father-child relationship, if you remember that trick which I discussed with you last time in the introduction. So this project management plan is the father, and we have a lot of childs in this which report to this. So this project management plan is a combination of, I would say, 18 to 19 components. In PMBOK, it is mentioned 18 components, but when they have described it, it's actually mentioned 19 as well. So like scope, configuration management plan, scope management plan, quality management plan, risk management plan, requirements, and the baselines as well, scope, schedule. It's like a pretty big document, and all of these are the child, and of course the project management plan is the father. Then in the executing section, we have 2 processes. We have the direct and managed project work, and we have the managed project knowledge. So direct and managed project work, why it is important is it's because of the deliverables. This is the process where you actually do the work. This is the process where your maximum time is consumed. I would say your maximum cost, resources, and all of those things are consumed in this particular process. Very important, a significant milestone, because your deliverables are being created for the first time. Then we have the managed project knowledge. I would say this is actually a new entry in the 6th edition. This is a new process. In 5th edition, this was not covered. But again, an important one. A lot of students have discussed with me about that this is an important. They're seeing good number of questions on this topic. So important. But what is this managed project knowledge? Basically, it's all about the lessons learned. The lessons learned which you have, which you can use from the previous project. The lessons learned which you would be, developing in this new project, which could be used for the future project. So again, a very important, I would say, a process, a new process, and of course we'll be discussing this in detail as well. Then in the monitoring control section, we have the 2 processes, monitor and control project work, and then we have the perform integrated change control. So monitor and control project work, it's about a comparison of planned and actual. What you planned and what you actually did. Like for example, if I would say your plan is to make sure that you complete all the integrations videos today. So but let's say you just completed three videos of integration. So there is a variance, right? In all, there would be 7 to 8 videos in this chapter, but you just covered 3. So again, there is a variance of 4 to 3 or 4 to 5, whatever. So an important one, monitor and control. It's your job as a project manager to make sure that you are monitoring and controlling it. Then we would be moving to perform integrated change control. Of course, I'm saying that all of these processes are important, and basically why I'm saying that, because you'll get a lot of questions, and for me, importance is all about the number of questions which you get. So this one, perform integrated change control, an important one. I would say this is like, the examiners, the PMI's favorite concept. A lot of questions on change requests we'll be discussing in much, much more detail. A lot of students reach out to me with a lot of questions on this, like what is the concept, what are the steps, how we do it, and there is so many conflicting theories on this. Some folks say that follow this process, some folks follow this process, and I'm not different. To be honest, I would be following one process, and why I follow this is because I myself have practiced a lot of questions on this, and a lot of my students have given the test, and all those they get those questions right based upon the theory which I will be teaching you on the perform integrated change control. And finally, we would be closing the project as well. So not just the project, but also the phase. So we started with the project charter, which was the first thing you will do on the project. Then in the middle, you were doing the work. So you first started, then you planned, then finally you executed where you actually did the work. Then it's your job as a project manager to that you're monitoring and controlling. Your team is doing a good job. If there are any corrective, preventive actions, all those things were also covered. And finally, you will close the project or phase as well. Next, we have the just a very high level description about these. First process, we have the develop project charter. So developing project, officially starting and authorizing the project. So I would say this is the process where officially we have a written document, like we call it as a project charter, where that document gives the authority to the project manager to start the project, to start the work on the project. So a very important document, which is actually, I would say, like a ticket for a movie, right? Until unless you have that ticket, you can't watch a movie. So that's the same thing. Until unless you have the project charter, you cannot initiate a project. Might be you guys are not following the PMI processes in your real world, but if you work for an organization where they're following a good PMO kind of structure, you will definitely talk about project charters, an important one. Then next we will talk about the developing a project management plan, creating the initial plan and structure for continued iterative plan development. I would say the topic progressive elaboration. I discussed this briefly in the introduction, and we will be also discussing in much more detail about the progressive elaboration. So project management plan is basically made from the concept of progressive elaboration and rolling wave planning. Same thing, we would be discussing that in the time management as well. Then the third process is the direct and manage project work, executing work packages to create the deliverable. What work packages are, I would say it's a little early for me to explain, but I would definitely discuss those work packages, the topic of work packages in the scope management. But for now, think that it's the process where your deliverables are created. Simple. Then we also discussed about the managed project knowledge, creation of new knowledge and using of existing knowledge. So when I say using of existing knowledge, I'm talking about some of your experience from your past projects. Like for me, when I teach a particular class, when my students go and give the exam, I gather the lessons learned. I gather about how the class was. Did they like it or did they not like it? Did I help them in their entire preparation? Was I able to answer their questions? What were the facilities which I used? And most importantly, whatever topics I taught, did they got questions in the real exam? And if they got, was there any confusion? What was the difficult point? All of those things, I use that existing knowledge which I've experienced from teaching my past students. And of course, I make amendments, I make changes on the concepts which I teach. So that's also creation of new knowledge. So I use that all the time. Like I would say, whatever videos you're watching, this is actually it's because of my students, to be honest. Then we have the monitor and control project work, ensuring that the project work deliverables are in line with the project plan. So what we are doing over here, we're doing a comparison of the project work, the work you have actually done with the work you have planned. Same example. You planned for watching the entire integration knowledge area videos, but unfortunately you were able to just watch 3 or 4, or you were able to probably watch a scope, half of scope management also, right? You were ahead of schedule in that case. So an important one we'll be discussing in detail. Moving to the next one, which is the perform integrated change control. If I have to pick one process out of these 7 which will have the most number of questions, I will actually go for this. Perform integrated change control. I'm not saying project charter. You'll get a lot of questions from project charter and of course the closed project. But this is something very, very important. For me, this is the most important process in this knowledge area, and not just in this knowledge area, but in your entire PMP. So very important, just listen carefully when I talk about this one. It's assessing the impact of the changes on the project to then make approval or rejection decision on the changes. So whatever changes, change request, you'll probably take a process, you would have a process in your organization which you will follow to either reject the change or approve the change. Do the impact analysis. We'll discuss in detail. Then close project or phase, properly terminating a project or phase, creating, updating, archiving project or phase documentation, including the contracts and OPS. So this, including the contracts, initially this contract part was the part of the procurement management, the closed procurement, but now this is part of the closed project. Very important, and of course we will be discussing in detail. Okay, so let's first start with the develop project charter process, and this is your first process. On the left hand side, this image which you are seeing is of a sample project charter. If you go on Google, I see, it's not clearly visible. For me also it's not clearly visible, but just type in on Google sample templates project charter, you'll get plenty. And to be honest, by the time when you're watching the videos, you might get some templates. You would be able to download some templates from our website as well, or it's already there. You never know, right? So the team is working on developing these kind of templates, and so that you can relate, you can see when you are studying, when you are watching these videos, you can see what are the different contents of the project charter. If you want to use it in your real world, in your organization, you can use those as well. So of course, a good process developing the project charter, an important one. I would say if around 10% of questions are coming from the initiating, so 10% is around 20 questions, and as we know there are 2 processes in the initiating. So one is the develop project charter and the other one is the identify stakeholders. So it's around, I would say 10 questions each. If I'm dividing them equally, then 10 questions. So I'm talking about somewhere closer to 10 questions. I may be wrong. This is my understanding. PMI has never given any number like this. This is something which I have gained from my past experience. So what is this process? Officially starting and authorizing the project. As stated previously, officially starting. This is my movie ticket. This will give you the authority to go in and start working on this project. So let's actually start a real life example which I was talking about. Like for example, let's talk about buying a new car. I've been planning to buy a new car from a long time now. So this is like a new project for me. So for me, buying a new car is a project. So each and everything, whatever you do, it's a project. Sometimes it's a small project or sometimes it's a big project, but something which has a definite end date. Yes, before the end of this year, I'm definitely planning to buy a new car, and for me that's a project. So by giving that example, developing the project charter would be the first document which will say that, Varun, you are the project manager on this project, go ahead and buy it. Go ahead and start your research, start doing the work, and of course get your deliverable, which is get the car. So this is a part of initiation process group. It's developing a project charter is an initiating process that creates the project charter. So our final output from this process would be the project charter. So which is the project charter officially starts the project. So again, movie ticket, here you go and watch the movie. So official document which says Go ahead. This is your time. So that's your developing project charter. So let's see what are things we have. So first we have the need. Project is triggered by a need. It would be maybe driven by a contract or to meet the business objective. So why do I need a new car? Why do you need a new car? Or why are you doing this PMP? There is always a need behind it, right? That need could be like this PMP is pretty popular. I want to grow in my career. I want to like I'm bored from my previous car, so that for me that's a need. So there is always a reason for doing something, right? So this is the document which will talk about that reason, that why I'm doing this project. What is the success criteria? What are the different success criteria for this project? How it will meet my the organization objectives. What are my project objectives? So all of those things are at a pretty high level, but basically why I'm doing the project. That's what a project charter is. It will talk about the priorities. So project is selected from many proposed projects based on financial and business priorities. So if you remember last time we discussed about selecting a project, how we can select based upon some of the financial numbers, like the cost benefit ratio, the internal rate of return, the net present value, all those things, the payback period, right? All those were pretty important concepts. If you remember, I talked about 2-3 questions from those. So all those things we like, for example, if you work for a big company, you can do multiple projects at the same time. But just assume you're a small company, you only have the bandwidth to do, let's say, 3 projects a year. You want to do the best 3 projects, right? The best 3 projects which are financially good, which helps your organization to grow, or those 3 projects which are meeting your strategic things, whatever the organization has thought about. So again, it's all about need. Then based upon the different project, based upon the priorities, you select that project. And finally, it's all about empowerment. So it's all about the charter authorizes and names the PM. So this is the document where your name is mentioned, which states that you, Mr. Miss ABC, you would be working as a project manager on this project. I am giving you the authority to move forward. So let's first talk about the basic input tools, techniques and outputs. And just don't forget, go on the website www.eduhubspot.com. Under the resources section, you can download your free ITTO sheet as well. So all of these things, whatever you're seeing on the screen, if you want a cheat sheet, that's your document. Just download the free ITTO sheet, download it, use it. I remember I used to tell my students that take out as many copies as possible of those sheet. Stick it somewhere, stick it in your bedroom, like stick it in your toilet. Don't laugh about it, but I used to tell people that if you're doing PMP, just make sure you're concentrating on the PMP. Study for 2 months time frame and just do it and get it done with. You need to have that passion of doing the PMP, and ITTOs is one of the most important one, which will help you to achieve that passion. When I was studying for PMP, it's been long years now. I remember I used to have this ITTO sheet, one in my bedroom, one in my toilet, one in my my office. I had many. I think one was in my car as well. So I'm sure you guys would be telling that I'm a nerd. No, it's nothing like that. Just consider me somebody like you. So, and my instructor told me at that time that Varun, you need to focus on these ITTOs, and I'm saying I'm doing the same thing. But when I say focus on these ITTOs, I don't want you to memorize each and everything. I don't want you to learn what are the inputs, what are the tools, or what are the outputs. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm telling you is, ask this question to yourself, that okay, when I'm saying this is the business document, why business document is the input to this process? Why this expert judgment is a tool to this process? Why we get this output assumption log as the output? When you start understanding these topics, trust me, your PMP journey would become very, very easier. So my job, my role would be to make sure um, I make sure that you understand these topics. Ask me any questions. Please guys, I never hesitate. You have my personal email address. If you don't have, okay, I'm giving you again. It's varun.anand@eduhubspot.com. I repeat, it's my first name, varun.anand@eduhubspot.com. Send me an email, and trust me, I reply to each and every email. I make sure that each and every email is replied. I try to do that in 24 hours, and most of the time I'm successful if I'm not on vacation or something. But I do that. Okay. So ask me questions. Go on our website, www.eduhubspot.com. Go on the blog section. Post a question. Or somebody from my team would definitely reply. There's no harm in asking, right? And if you ask, and if I'm pretty sure you would, and no question is small or big or stupid or dumb. No, I won't judge you. Ask me anything. I will make sure that your question gets answered. You have my email address. If somebody is not replying to you, I'm there to help you. In short, okay. So let's talk about it. So first we will talk about the business documents, the business case and the benefits management plan. If you remember, I discussed briefly about those two documents in the introduction section. I'll talk again just to do a quick revision. Then agreements, we deal with contractors all the time. Why agreement is an important input here. We'll talk about that. Then we would be discussing our common inputs, the enterprise environmental factors and the OPS, which we discussed in the introduction section, but I'll again talk about this. Expert judgment, another common tool, and okay, I won't say the important one, but yes, a good one. Then we have the data gathering. We'll talk about brainstorming, focus group interviews. I'll give you a brief idea about all of these things. And then interpersonal skills, we have the conflict management, the facilitation, and the meeting management. Finally, meetings. What is the difference between meeting management and meetings? I'll talk about that. And we will get two outputs, the project charter and the assumption log. We'll talk about those as well. Okay. So let's first talk about the inputs. So basically we have four inputs here. First we have the business documents. And the business document is further divided into the business case and the benefits management plan. So you will notice one thing in your PMBOK is they have mentioned in most of these documents, it said this is not limited to this. So please, PMI has given whatever they think is important, but it's not just limited to that. It could be anything else also. So if you're thinking, if you're doing some study or a research and you say that, oh Varun, why is cost management plan is not an input here? Why it is not mentioned? Just think that PMI is playing on a safer side, and they have said that it can be. Of course, you can ask the question. I'll try to see if it makes sense or not. So the business document, we have the business case, and then we have the benefits management plan. So business case, as discussed earlier, this is the document which is used for decision making on whether the project result will meet the required investment or not. So let's say I'm buying a car. Same example, I'm buying a car, and my basic purpose is for business. Okay, let's say I invest some $20,000-$30,000, and my goal is that initially, let's say my goal is to make, let's say, 10 trips, and and try to get more and more money. But again, I have to do that analysis. I need to understand that is this investment really worth. I need to discuss those numbers in my mind, the internal rate of return, the payback period, and the benefit cost ratio, all those numbers, good numbers which we discussed previously. I have to analyze that. And business case is one such document which will tell me whether is it really worth doing this project. If it is not, then of course I'm not doing it. But if it is, then what is it? Okay. This will help to make sure whether the project is strategically aligned to the business objectives of the organization or not. So is it every year I would say, our organization comes up with some of the goals, whether those goals are good or not. Let's start talking about the inputs. First, we have so basically we have four inputs over here: the business document, the agreements, the EF, and OPS. I would say out of these four, business document is something which is very important, which is something which we already discussed in your introduction chapter, but again, very, very important. Then on the agreement side, we also have the agreements. EF and OP are the common ones. I would say, read it, understand it, what all things it involves, but don't take too much pain on these. So some of the common inputs and some of the common tools and outputs, you have to study. I'm not saying you can ignore it, but again, just the important ones, if you ask me personally, is the business documents and the agreement. Those are more important. So on the business document, we have the business case and we also have the benefits management plan. So business case, it's all about why I'm doing this project, why I'm buying this car. Okay, so if I have a thought process behind that, I want to use it for work, I want to use this car, is it really worth taking the car, like a $30,000 car? Can I not take a $10,000 car, or can I not take a second hand, a 5,000 car? Again, you have to ask these questions to yourself and say, is it really worth doing this project? So business case is one such document which will help you to understand that why I'm doing this project. So let's see. It is used for decision making, what I was talking about, on whether the project result will meet the required investment or not. Is it really worth doing this? That's the real question. Ask this to yourself and you will know that yes, this is the right thing to do or this is not the right thing to do. Like for example, you have already taken the decision to give the PMP exam. I'm assuming that's why you are watching the video, right? So again, that's your business case, that why I'm doing this project. Okay, of course I want to grow in my career. I want to get a promotion at my work, or I want to learn something, right? So these are the reasons. This is like market is trending, so another good reasons for that. So this helps to make sure whether the project is strategically aligned to the business objectives of the organization or not. So every year what we do is, as an organization, we define some strategic goals. We say that, okay, for us, customer experience is a topmost priority. This has been our motto right from day one. That's what we have always aimed for, right? So that's one of the strategic objectives we meet. So whatever project we do, we make sure that our end goal of meeting the customer satisfaction is met. So for us, that's a business case, right? Then on the second hand, we have the benefits management plan, another business document, which will describe how and when the benefits of the project will be delivered. So this is something which is all about the benefits, how to measure those benefits, what will be the time frame of those benefits, how can I realize those benefits. So it's an important one, and also it talks about the benefits, the owner, who is the actual owner of those benefits. Something like, what is the matrix behind these benefits? What is it measured against? All those are some of the important information which is part of this benefits management plan. On the other hand, the business case, it was all about the organization's strategic objectives, which will help us to take a decision whether this project is successful or not, and the go no go decision. Should I do this project? That's also part of business case. Benefits management plan, I would say it uses the business case and then it is formed. So both very important ones. Ask this question: why do I need these documents for the project charter? If I'm saying that project charter is your first document, which is very, very important on the project, which will actually give you the authority, you need to know that, right? Why I'm doing this project. Unless you know that, why I'm doing this project, there's no, just stop watching this video if you don't know why you want to do the PMP. That's why you're watching the video, because you have a goal in your mind that these are the 5 reasons, these are the 10 reasons, which helps me to understand that this is the reason I want to give PMP. And if you know that, that's your business document. Then we will talk about the agreements. Agreements are in the form of contracts, some MOUs, SLAs, letter of agreements, letter of intent, verbal agreement, emails. Like, yes. So I would say ethically, agreement is something which is something a formal written document. But of course, a verbal agreement could also be part of agreement as well. And if you go on a networking event, a lot of time I attend in the PMIs, the local chapters, the meetups and stuff. And most of the time, I discuss with them. I give them sometimes verbal agreement. Yes, I will do this class for you. I'll teach this class, or I'll discuss this topic for you. For me, it's a verbal agreement. There's not any written document for in the beginning, but I do that, right? So again, if I'm starting a new project, we need some kind of agreement. If I have to give you a written official document which will say that, okay, Mr. Miss ABC, you want to start this project, this is where your document is, we need to have agreement in place. So you know why agreement is very important. We deal with buyers, sellers, vendors all the time, right? And it's not verbal agreement, right? It's form of something written, so you need it. Then we'll talk about EEF, OPA. So these two are actually, I would say, a common input, like most of the processes. So if you have the ITTO sheet with you, just flip it over. You will see that these are the two inputs which you will see almost in, I would say, 90% of your processes, 49 processes. Why? It's important. It's very common, like EEF. So something which is not in control of your project team. Something, of course, it could be internal, it could be external. Something like what is the organization culture? I remember many years back, I used to work for a company where I used to go in the afternoon. They were more worried. My company was more worried about getting the work done. So their main goal was get the work done. They don't care. So there are, and sometimes and remember, I've also worked for a company where I have to report for at 9 o'clock sharp. So again, it's an organization culture. I've been to both of the companies. I like both the companies. It just depends. So if you take those examples, like the infrastructure, some of the what is the marketplace, like what is the how the things, all of these are actually examples of EEF. Then on the OPA, the organization process asset, that's more like your plans, your processes, your policies, your procedures, which are very specific to that organization. That's why the name is, right, organization process assets. So again, some your lessons learned, all those lessons learned are actually saved to some kind of repository, some kind of knowledge base. Those are actually examples of OPA. So again, two common inputs. You will see these inputs a lot. I would say out of the 7 processes which we have in integration, you will see, I think in almost all 7, or most probably in 6 at least. Okay, so next is your project triggers. Like it's actually a part of your business case on why you need, or why you are starting this project. And of course there are many reasons, and think in which bucket you lie. Why you are doing PMP, or I'll ask my question: why I'm buying this new car? Why I want to buy this new car? Is it a market demand? No, I don't think so. No, for me, no. It's not a market demand that I want to buy this car. But of course, it's pretty popular, and the one which I like is pretty popular in the market. Everybody is buying, so I think I'm buying it for that. That's not the real reason, but of course, right? So it could be one of the reason. Or I would say PMP is actually a good example that it's PMP is pretty in. It's a lot of people, like many people are doing PMP, and they really like it. They're actually growing in their organization, or they're moving out and moving to the next company, and this is something which is respectable certification. So it's a market demand. That's why people are doing it. It's an organizational need. Yes, I remember I taught a class for a company A, and I don't want to name that, but so I taught a class for a company A, and one of the reason I got that contract was that it was mandatory for them to to be a PMP in order to get promoted. That was the organizational need. So the training head, actually, he was I met him in one of the PMI events, and he was pretty impressed by the way I was actually giving a, I was one of the panelists there. So I talked about it, and he came to me, he asked me some relevant questions, and invited me to take the course for them. So he told me that a lot of people, and basically for them, if they had to work on some government contracts, and government made it mandatory for them to be PMP. That was an example of organizational need. Customer request, why I'm teaching this course. The customer want it, right? This you guys are listening to it, you guys like it, and I'm assuming you guys like it till now. I'm pretty sure I'll try to make it interesting. It might be boring, this topic, but I'll try to give you examples and make sure that this is an interesting topic for you. So customer, it's a customer request. The PMP example which I gave you, the same example, right? The person asked me, the training head asked me to deliver. It was a customer request. I went there, and I found it pretty good. I met some good people. I made some good connections, so that was a good one for me. Then technological advance, like you are on Internet Explorer 8, 9, 10, or whatever, right? If there is a technological advance, you want to move from one technology to other, and all the time, if you have to grow in this organization, or if you have to grow in this industry, technology keeps on changing, and if you don't change, then no comments. Sometimes it's a legal requirement. Yes, there was a legal requirement. Those folks who were bidding for the government contract, it was a legal requirement that they can only work on this project if they are PMP certified. Sometimes there is an ecological impacts. That's not giving PMP has nothing to do with this. But sometimes there are ecological impacts. Sometimes there is a social need for doing this. So all of these are project triggers on why you need a particular project. Okay, so next is about the tools and techniques. So basically in this particular slide, we would be discussing the tools, and why tools are important, I would say, because they'll give you a scenario. They'll say you are a project manager for ABC company, and this is what is happening. These are your two team members are doing something like this. What will you do in this type of scenario, or what will be your first step, or what will be your next step? All of these questions, you will get a lot of the scenario type questions in the real exam, and they'll ask you which tool is important, or which tool would be the best in this scenario, or which tool the project manager has actually used in this scenario. So that's why, very important, if I have to pick between input tools and output, I would definitely go for tools that you'll get a lot of questions, the situational questions. Of course, when you go to the website and you practice some of the practice questions, I've given a lot of questions. Just make sure that you're doing the questions on the simulator as well. Remember, guys, watching videos, understanding, developing concepts is one thing, but until and unless you don't solve the questions, it won't help you. So you have to make sure whatever you are grasping, whatever you are getting, you are able to implement those things in the questions, by solving the questions. If, for example, you told me that, Varun, I got everything, but if you're still scoring 40s or in 50s in the practice test, that is it really helping you? I don't know. Of course, might be there's something missing. Might be I'm not teaching good, or might be you are not understanding the concept. It could be any reason, right? But you need to understand. You need to practice. You need to know the reason why you are not getting it. So again, make sure, go to the website. What's the website. Just practice a lot of questions. And even if I'm not just trying to market my product, but just practice from source, but of course, authentic, good source. Try to do more and more questions. So first we have the expert judgment, something which we have already discussed in the introduction module, a common tool, expert judgment. Like I would say, like when you create a project charter, right? You will get sometimes you need a help of an expert. Like for example, if you go to our Facebook group or LinkedIn group, on that, a lot of people tag me on those questions, and they ask me, Varun, your EJ please. So EJ is the expert judgment. Can we get your EJ? So basically, Varun as an expert who is who is doing well in project management, who's trying to give answers to those questions. Of course, I may be wrong sometimes, but I am being used as an expert judgment tool. So similarly, you are somebody who has tons of experience in a particular domain, and if I need some help with, I'll probably reach out to you for those particular. Like one of my friend, he's pretty good in, I would say, software development. And if I need some kind of software, I definitely go and look up to him. For me, he is an expert judgment. So in order to make the project charter, you need expert judgment. A common one you will see, just refer to your ITTO sheet, you will see this tool a lot. Then on the data gathering side, we have the brainstorming. First we'll start with brainstorming, then focus groups and interviews. Brainstorming, it's a facilitator conducts a brainstorming section where group of stakeholders brainstorm about data, solution and ideas. What is brainstorming? If you ask me, I would say, what I normally do is, okay, I'll walk around and I'll say, okay, team, let's go to the conference room, let's talk about it. Let's just brainstorm some ideas. That's what we're talking about. Okay, what next feature we should get on the simulator? What is something which could help the end user? So all those are actually brainstorming session, which will help you to understand what you really want. And most of the time, this is something which would be used in the requirements gathering session a lot. We do a lot of brainstorming sessions in that. But when you're developing the project charter, you do brainstorming, right? You ask, okay, what are the high level requirements? What would be the high level timeline? Like, do I want within 6 months? Do I want within 1 year? These are brainstorming sessions. Then next we have the focus group. So we'll be discussing this in detail in the scope management. But what is a focus group? Just it's more focused than a brainstorming session. It's more structured, I would say. Of course, we have a moderator who is leading the session, who is focused on, let's say, a particular domain. Like for example, if I need requirements related to search engine optimization, I'll probably discuss about only search engine. So that's I'm pretty focused about that. That's focus group. Then interviews, we meet a lot of folks, we talk to people, we try to get their feedback. So again, in order to develop project charter, we do these data gathering techniques, which is brainstorming, focus group and interviews. On the other side, we also need the interpersonal and the team skills, right? You need to have good interpersonal team skills. Like if you want to be successful in project management, you need to have good interpersonal skills. That's what I strongly feel. And one of the important one is the conflict management, which we will be discussing in much more detail in the resource management, where we have a lot of conflicts between the resources, but important one, like if there is a conflict, how we should resolve it, what is the best technique to resolve those conflicts. All those things we'll be discussing in resource management. Then we would have some kind of facilitation, like as the name suggests, a facilitator is conducting a group event where the primary purpose is to reach an agreement/solution. Facilitator makes sure that everybody contributes in this process. So I would say this facilitation is more like a kind of a workshop, like a facilitated workshop, where lot of people, lot of team members from different teams, I would say, are coming together in one room. We have a moderator who is actually leading the session, who is making sure that everybody is contributing, everybody is giving their ideas, and if there is a interrelationship between two different teams, how we can tackle those, how we would deliver from one team to another, all those we talk about it. So in order to create a project charter, we do facilitation all the time. In scope management facilitation, we also do, I don't know if you know about something about JAD session, JAD, JAD session. So it's joint application development. So if you are into business analysis or business analyst, you might know this term JAD session, where there is a moderator who is actually who is leading the session. We have a recorder, we have a scriber, writer. They all are talking about a particular topic, and they write down the notes and they come up with some kind of requirements. So in order to create a project charter, you need to understand some of the high level requirements. You need to know all of those important pieces. And for that, JAT session is an important one. Then we have the meeting management. Again, we will talk about this in much more detail in communication management knowledge area. But what are the good things about the meeting? Like how we can have an effective meeting. Like you should always publish the agenda before the meeting. You should have some kind of ground rules in that meetings. If somebody is trying to divert the topic, you need to have, as a project manager, you need to make sure the team sticks to the stakeholders stick to the current topic. So that's meeting management, and that's one of the interpersonal skills. You need all those things, right? If you are doing one of the most important things of your project, which is like to officially start the project, which is something which is like develop the charter, you need these information, right? And finally, all of those things would come under the meetings. Another common tool which we discuss in the introduction section, if you remember, why do we meet? We do meetings for taking a decision, to do a voting, to brainstorm on some ideas, on like try to think about some corrective action, preventive action. So we meet all the time. Like I would say most of my time is actually spent in meetings. What I do. If you see my calendar, if I show you my calendar right now, it's all about meetings. So we meet, we discuss how we can do it, what is the best way of doing it, and just move forward with it, right? Okay, so we discussed the inputs, we discussed the tools. The process was develop project charter. Okay, what we were creating, our main focus was actually on the project charter itself. So this process started with couple of inputs, the agreements, the business case, the benefits management plan, and finally we are here with the project charter. An official document which gives you the opportunity as the project manager to start working on the project. Remember, some of the keywords on this project charter process is that it's a high level, it's very high level. All the information, like it will have high level requirements, high level scope, high level schedule, high level budget. All that information would be high level. On the other hand, we would also have the assumption log. So assumption log is something which I assume to be true. Like things like for example, I'm assuming that my friend who is helping me to buy that car, like who would actually tell me what are the good things. I'm assuming that he would help me. But what if he is not, right? It's a risk on your project. So assumption log is also created once your project charter is created. Let's do a quick revision and we would be done with the first and one of the most important process of the integration management knowledge area. Okay, so first focus your effort on understanding the primary output, the project charter. So basically whatever I discussed, whatever we did it for the project charter. So you need to understand project charter, something which is done by the sponsor who makes sure that you do the you start working on the project. Then know that the project charter is signed by the senior management and authorize the project manager by name to direct the project. So I'm giving, let's say if I am the sponsor, I'm telling you that, okay, Mr. A or Miss B, you are the one who would be managing this project. It's know that the project charter includes the reason for the project, high level project requirements, high level milestone schedule, each and everything would be high level in this. And finally, it documents the high level information on the project. So each and every information is high level.